Welcome to the second teacher training session for new teachers. Today, I'd like to address the issue of grammar teaching. How many of you like grammar? Yeah, you like grammar, Rochi? Yeah? Anybody else? Does anybody remember grammar, learning grammar in school? Grammar, English grammar, maybe as a second language or as a first language? I barely remember it. You know, the last grammar course or lesson that I can remember goes back to to when I was a freshman in high school. You know, English teacher, she had this old book. I guess it was a Scott's Forsman or whatever. It was a brown book, and it was there were a lot of explanations and, you know, a lot of text. You know, there weren't that many pictures, and so it was a lot of things. There were a lot of things there that I had to figure out and then memorize somehow, I guess. I can't really remember how I learned it. But in any event, grammar is usually associated with less than engaging lessons. So they're not very exciting per se, okay? But our job is to make sure that they do become exciting, that they get our students to speak and to write and to interact with each other and to learn it so that they can eventually use it for real communication. Okay, that's the whole idea behind grammar teaching, okay? All right, so, but before we proceed with the teaching or the training, let's review some of the things that we saw last time. Now, in your handout, you have these questions, okay? And first question is, what is the name of our methodology? Don't tell me yet. Second, which of the dynamics is most related to quality input, not output? We looked at output as well, but now we're looking at input. Teacher creativity and teacher personality. Okay, they all kind of go together. Which is most associated with fluency building, a speaking exercise at the end of a reading activity, or a group discussion as a pre-reading task? So one of those two is more appropriate for getting students to build up their fluency. Okay? And is that Miriam? Miriam? Yeah. Yeah, Miriam. You need a handout? Yeah? I'll let you have mine. I hope I don't regret it because I'm going to be blind. There we go. That's for you. Okay. What certificate or level does Equals? Now remember, Equals is the accrediting agency that we're working with right now. And so they have certain standards that we have to meet when it comes to teaching and our teachers. And so what do they expect from us? An FCE or B2 level, or a CA or C1 level? And finally, the last question, regarding our institutional vision, what is one of the three areas we wish to lead in? I don't know what an accent mark is there as a typo, one of those self-correct things, autocorrect, okay? Work with somebody, get together with one or two people, work in a group or work as a pair, and try to answer these questions. I'll give you a minute for each one. That's 5 minutes altogether. Let's see what we have. What is the name of our methodology? Is anyone eager to volunteer, to be the first volunteer today? Hamley, thank you very much. You see, he was about to raise his hand. I read his mind, and I said, I'll call on Hamley right there. Hamley, why don't you give us the answer?
We're not sure, but Euro experience.
That is correct. Euro experience is correct. Everybody got the same answer, right? Yes, we got the same answer. Okay, good. Now, something upholds the Euro experience. What is it?
QLL.
QLO what?
Framework. Dynamics.
QLO Dynamics Framework, James. Very good. And it's visually represented by what? How do we depict the QLO Dynamics Framework? The triangle. It's got 4 components. What are they?
L2 output.
L2 output. Very good. Tech. Kinesthetic. Fernando, right? All right. One more. Motivational. Very good. Excellent. Now, which of the 4 is most related to quality input, teacher creativity, and teacher personality? I'm sorry, what did you say? We don't have an L2 input dynamics. We have an L2 output dynamics.
Output.
But that's a good guess. Anybody else? You got 3 left. Technology?
Yes.
Now, when I talk about teaching style, right? The way I teach, what I do in class, tell jokes, make decisions to be a little more creative, go beyond the course book. Motivational dynamics. Very good. That's where input comes in. If the input does not motivate students, students are not engaged, they don't participate, we don't get anything, they don't learn. Okay, so input actually is channeled through motivational dynamics. Then we have fluency building. Which one is perhaps most appropriate to get students to build up their fluency? A speaking exercise at the end of a reading activity, or a group discussion as a pre-reading task? Well, what do you think? Yeah.
L2 output.
That would be the dynamics. He's thinking the triangle. That's a good thing, actually. Okay, that's not what I asked, but that's a great thing. He's thinking about the triangle. I love it. All right, but which one of these activities would be more appropriate to get students to build up their fluency? What do you think? Yes, Charles, right? Yeah, Charles. Okay.
I think maybe a speaking exercise after a reading activity.
Okay. Why would that be?
Because they have something to talk about and make maybe more critical, do more critical thinking on some actual material.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, both kind of will help people build up their fluency. But Charles just made an important point. They've been exposed to this input, additional language. There's a topic. There's a discussion. You know, a lot of ideas that they've been exposed to that will help them, you know, get their ideas out as well. Yes, Cesar?
So it might depend on the level, right? So if it's an intermediate, upper intermediate, or advanced level, they have like the background so as to discuss and talk about certain topics.
Right. Right. I mean, normally if you're exposed to input, if it's the right kind of input, it will stimulate a positive response. Okay? Good. What about certificate? Does equals expect from adult program teachers? One more time. What certificate does equals expect adult program teachers to have? CA, that's what you said the first time. Yeah, CAE. Okay, so Cambridge Advanced English or the equivalent. Okay? All right, good. How many of you have a CAE or higher? Now remember, higher might be a CPE. It might be an ECPE if it's the American test from the University of Michigan. Now, you don't have to have a certificate under a particular, if you're in a particular situation. What would that be? Well, actually, 2 situations. James just reminded me, and Charlie just reminded me of one. If you are a native speaker, you do not require a language proficiency certificate. But non-native speakers don't need a language certificate either if they can prove what? They've lived and studied or worked or whatever overseas, well, in an English-speaking country for a significant period of time. And they have 2 requirements. One, the teachers meet a certain level of proficiency. In other words, their ability to master the language and use it to communicate with their students and to be role models for the students, provide the right input. So there's proficiency. Then you have methodology or methodological expertise. There are 2 different categories. So you can be an expert teacher, but if you don't have the right level of proficiency, then you won't meet the standard. So there are 2 different things. They're not saying that just because you're a native speaker, you can teach. What they're saying is that will allow you to comply with the language component of the standard, not the teaching component. Teaching is another thing. So when they go into a class, they're going to know, okay, this guy's a native speaker. Okay, great. We don't have to worry about the language requirement. Now let's see if he can teach. And they're going to observe your class and they're going to match it against their standards. So there are 2 different things. Okay, but he has a point. Okay, everybody else, if you're teaching in adults, you need a CAE. Now, if you're not teaching adults, what do you need? FC. Okay, so that's a B2 level. And finally, regarding our institutional vision, what is one of the 3 areas we wish to lead in? You can name any one of the 3. I mentioned 3. And one of them starts with, well, I'm not going to say. Yes, Alberto, you Alberto? Sebastian. Okay, Sebastian. Yeah.
Internationalization.
Excellent. Very good. Akash, what about another one? Quality. Excellent. See, I knew you knew the answer. You didn't want to show off, right? Okay. One more. Quality, internationalization, and the other one starts with an I as well. It's very important for any organization to survive in a highly competitive environment. Yes, Charles?
Innovation.
Innovation. You see, I knew you guys do. Excellent. Good, good. Good work. You were paying attention to me last time. Good. All right, let's see. So again, this is the methodology, the Euro experience. Okay, that's the logo. It's a nice logo. That's the triangle. You want to take a picture of it, take it home. You can look at it before you go to sleep every night. That's it. That's what's going to help you plan your lessons. Okay? All right, so the teacher evaluation system. Now, before we go into grammar, you need to know how we evaluate teachers. Okay, Equals wants us to have a systematic approach to teacher evaluation apart from promoting professional development and teacher training. So we have to evaluate our teachers. Basically, unlike other institutions that might have a checklist, all right, that you have to, follow slavishly, yeah? We have something a little more open. Basically, we want to check and make sure that you comply with as many of the QLO dynamics as possible while we're there, in your class, while we're observing, okay? Now, you can see that we do have some items here that are referential, but we also have some open spaces because you might do something very differently. The important thing here is we're not telling teachers what to do. We're providing you with a framework that will guide you in teaching your classes so that we can provide quality language learning experiences for our students. In other words, if we give you the triangle, you have to find ways to be creative, to have your class be engaging. Now, we're not going to tell you specifically what to do in Basic 5, in Unit 3, on page 59, on a certain date and time. You have to do this. We're not going to tell you that. It's up to you. How are you going to make your class more engaging? How are you going to get your students to produce more language, to speak and to write more? That's up to you. Now, we're going to provide you with some tools, techniques, strategies. You employ them as you wish. The important thing is that students produce. Now, how you do that, that's your choice. We're not telling you specifically, step by step, what to do. Now, when I began in the field a few years ago, some of you guys are smiling. You know when I started, right? Anyway, and I remember back then, they would tell you, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? Look, I went to observe your class and you did this. Well, how come you didn't follow the book the way you're supposed to? And I was actually a witness. And I could see the poor teacher sweating all over the place. I was like, oh my God, I'm in trouble now. What am I going to do? And there was an evaluation system. What was it? It was above average. I don't know. It was an S, S minus, S plus, and a U. There was a big U. So if you didn't, yeah, unsatisfactory. So it was like a big U, and the guy wrote a big U, and I could see it. That thing was so big I could see it from like 20 feet away. I said, poor teacher, because the teacher didn't follow the book 100%. So you were penalized. That's not the deal today. Today, I mean, we have good course books. They've come a long way. They're a lot better than they used to be, but they're not perfect. No course book is perfect, so it's up to you to look at your course book. Now, it's very valuable because otherwise you'd have to make up all the activities. And you'd have to make sure all those activities that you made up were aligned with the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. And you're not going to do that. So if the book is well designed, well made, okay, it saves a lot of time and effort. But you still have to check. You got to say, hey, is this going to work? Is this not going to work? If it's not going to work, okay, let me see how I can fix it. How can I can enhance it? Or maybe I need to replace it altogether with another activity of my own. Now, we leave that up to you. We're not going to tell you, oh, a big fat U because you didn't follow the book 100%. Okay, you need to, I want to make that absolutely clear because I don't want anybody saying, oh, Leo said we had to follow the book. Okay, all right. So this is the form that we use. We have to write a narrative when we observe your class. It has to be an accurate reconstruction of what took place while we were there. So we do a lot of training. I train the observers, the coordinators, They have to focus on observations, which are facts. So, for example, right now, I think we have like 25 people. There were 25 people seated in 2 different groups, blah, blah, blah. Those are facts. No opinions. There's no room for opinions. And then we arrive at conclusions or inferences based on the information that we put together in the narrative. Okay? And then we might check some of these off. We arrive at a conclusion. We have an action plan. The action plan might be maybe cultivating a particular strength, or there might be something you may need to improve. And so we'll try to work on that for next time. Okay? So this is how that works. Now, when we evaluate teachers, we look at 2 things. One is teaching. So we have a scale that goes from A, B, C, and D. A is at the top. That is what we consider superlative performance. You're doing a great job. Your teaching is perfectly aligned with the QLL Dynamics framework. Okay? It's what we expect. A B is good. Okay? A B is good. So if we read it, the teacher shows confidence, organization, and a good relationship with students. Most of the time, the teacher applies strategies and techniques effectively, despite 1 or more opportunities for improvement. The learners are generally engaged, perform well, and stay on task most of the time. TTT, which is what? Teacher talk time, is reduced in favor of STT. QLL Dynamics are present throughout the lesson. Okay, so that's basically a description of a B-level class. A D-level class, which of course we never see, at least we don't see anymore. The teacher has serious limitations with a clear lack of organization and an inability to apply certain elementary principles of teaching. The class is clearly teacher-centered and the explanations and examples are minimally supported. Class management is also an issue as students are non-responsive and apparently disengaged. No signs of the QLL Dynamics framework are present. Okay? So, yeah, we used to see a couple of these every now and then. Okay? We don't see them anymore. Why do you think we don't see them anymore? Because they're not here anymore. The people aren't. I mean, no, listen. All jokes aside, listen. No. I better clarify that right away because you guys are going to get really nervous. Listen, our main job is to help people improve. Okay? We're not here to fire people. We're not here to, get them on film and watch them and popcorn and criticize them. And no, we're here to help people. That's our main job. So if we can help you, we will try to help you. If you want to be helped too. It depends on whether you want to be helped as well. All right, so we're going to do everything we can to help you improve. All right. However, there are some cases where, the person's vision is incompatible with our own, and so it may not work that much, or work out that well. Then we have English. Now, why do you think we evaluate English? Why do we evaluate English in the classroom on the part of the teacher? Yes, Cesar.
Because the teacher is a role model. And if he does produce some mistakes or he doesn't have proficiency, then students will just act or produce their English as the teacher is doing.
Right, correct. Listen, despite all of the advances in technology, the teacher is still, in most cases, the primary source of input in the second language, especially in a classroom setting. We're still the main source of input. So we have to make sure that the English that they hear, that they listen to, is in accordance with the level that is appropriate for an ideal learning environment. If we make a lot of mistakes, if we can't answer questions, if we can't give examples, then our students are going to be in trouble. Okay, so we have to that's why we're very demanding when it comes to language proficiency. We want to make sure that everybody is at the right level because we're the main, as Cesar said, the main role model for the language in class. And believe me, students can tell if we have limitations. In fact, sometimes they'll correct us. Yeah, if we make mistakes. Good. Okay, so you got to be careful. These are situations, I'm mentioning them. We don't see them very much anymore. I'll talk about the Gracie class. I'm not talking about the Gracie Mansion. I'm talking about the Gracie class. Now, we have to be very careful. Sometimes you have a teacher who has a good level of proficiency, but for some particular reason, she or he did not prepare adequately for the class. So, you go to class, you sit there, you're watching the class, you're observing, and the teacher's going over adjectives to describe food, right? So you have salty and crunchy and greasy. So the teacher, the words are in the book. So it's like, everybody listen and repeat, crunchy. Everybody's like, crunchy. Salty, salty. I don't know if they have buttery, but whatever. And then it comes time to say, everybody listen and repeat, Gracie. And I'm like, what? And then you can see a couple of students, they're also like, what? Gracie, yeah, again, come on, Gracie. Everybody's like, okay, Gracie, hey, good work. All right. And I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah, I know that language is a living thing. They talk a lot about world Englishes and how English no longer belongs to any particular country, and it's like a living organism that kind of adapts and it changes, and you have, Sri Lankan English, and you have Thai English, and you have Madagascaran English, and all kinds of Englishes, yeah? But the last time I checked, I don't recall the word Gracie to describe food. So in English, usually there are two ways to say that word. One is greasy, and the other one is greasy. Now some people say greasy, so they voice it so you can hear the vibration, right? But not Gracie. I've heard of Gracie Mansion, but not Gracie food. This pizza is really Gracie. Anyway, so yeah, so in the end, students, she starts calling on students. She did the right thing. I mean, her teaching was okay. She said, hey, give me some examples of food that might be this or that. So one student said, okay, popcorn is salty and blah, blah, blah. Okay, good, and we eat it at the movie theater. All right, great, good. And that was good. And then, so what about anticuchos or chicharrón? Yeah, chicharrón is Gracie. Yeah, chicharrón is great. You're right, chicharrón is very Gracie. And I'm like, when is this going to be corrected? And then another student said, I don't remember what it was exactly. I think it was pizza. And pizza is greasy, teacher. That's right, pizza is greasy. I thought, whoa. She just flipped on the lesson. She just changed, she reverted to the right way to pronounce the word. And she didn't even realize it. And so I'm thinking to myself, wait, apparently she has the proficiency level. I mean, her English is good overall. But I guess she was careless. She did not prepare. What we are supposed to do when we are preparing our lessons, if we're not sure about a word, check it out. Where can we find the right pronunciation, by the way, for any word? Just Google it. Google, you get the little loudspeaker, the megaphone, click, and then you hear the right pronunciation. That's it. But then she made one more mistake. So she's writing the adjectives, and she's writing them on the board. And then all of a sudden I see spacey. Oh, she means spicy. Okay, she might be a little out in outer space today, but that's not the right word. And she wrote it, and so I was like, oh no, it's worse when you write it. First of all, it's bad when you say it and then you repeat it, but it's worse when you write it because everybody can see it. So there's no way to get around it. Because sometimes you want to say, Gracie, I didn't say Gracie. What, you didn't hear me right. I didn't say that. What are you kidding me? When it's spoken. But if you have it written, forget it. So I wrote a little note. I said, hey, get over here. I was trying to signal to her, and she kept on teaching. I was like, hey, get over here. And then they started working on something. And so I called her, and I put the note. I tried to be subtle, right? Inconspicuous. So take a look, and it said, hey, you made a mistake. You misspelled spicy. You wrote spacey. Change it right away. And so I figured she was going to read it. And she said, okay, tiptoe to the board and kind of make sure nobody was looking and then erase it. But no, she said, really? Oh, I did? I misspelled a word? Oh, my goodness. Oh, listen, this doesn't happen. And everybody's like turning around. And I'm like, no, you're supposed to be subtle, quiet. You have to do that quietly. Anyway, so listen, I think for some reason, and sometimes people get really nervous too. People get really nervous. They make mistakes. Okay, they make mistakes. Okay, don't make mistakes like that, okay? Because you can make a mistake with a word that might slip out, but if it's the target language of the lesson, if it's the vocabulary in the book, if it's the grammar in the book that is staring right at you, it's really hard to get around that. I mean, you have to prepare. You have to check the night before, you have to check the pronunciation, you have to check the structures, come up with examples that work. And you have to be ready for the questions. If you're not ready they're going to ask you some questions. They're not always easy. If you're not ready, Students will notice. You're going to start getting nervous, and they're like, oh, why is he getting nervous? Because he doesn't know. Okay? So they're very smart. Let me give you the example of vegetables. This is the vegetables. So this is another class, and the teacher was, again, doing the drills and everything, and then all of a sudden, okay, everybody, I want you to kind of come up, look for foods that have vegetables. And it was vegetables. And I could hear the recording because somebody else had observed the class, and he recorded the class because he wanted evidence, because he probably figured I wasn't going to believe him. So he said, hey, listen, this happened for real. He played it. And I said, yeah. She said, vegetables. I guess she was combining veggies and vegetables. And so she was repeating, and then the students were like, and you could hear, students responding. They're like, wait, that's not the way it's said. So we got to be really, really careful. Now, in that case, I think it was more of a language proficiency issue rather than a case of carelessness. Okay? Then we have 2200. It's the same thing. So if you have a number staring at you, yeah, right? And then this is another teacher whose proficiency level overall is pretty good. I mean, you talk to the guy, and yes, it's good. I mean, he can communicate. Communication doesn't break down. You don't have all of these rampant errors with pronunciation or anything, or grammar, but the guy was going over prices and numbers, and all of a sudden you had a number, it was 20,200, and he said 2,200. Everybody listen, repeat. And everybody was like, and he was like, come on. So you know that the students are figuring out something is wrong, right? So you got to be really careful. And then you had, and I guess this is the example that Charles was mentioning somehow. We had the mannequin challenge. You know what the mannequin challenge is, right? Where everybody freezes, all right? And so they take a picture or they record everybody in a room or something in a certain setting, and everybody's like this, like frozen like a mannequin. So I don't know what the big deal is about a mannequin challenge, but that's what they call it, okay? And there was there was a native speaker. Actually, it happened twice, 2 mannequin challenges. And these guys, I mean, they were smart. They're smart guys. They had degrees in theater, and you study theater and arts and all that stuff. You got to be a smart guy, got to know how to act and all this stuff. So you got to be very cultured. Very smart guys. But they had to teach grammar, and so they needed a teacher right away. We had to send a teacher. It was an emergency requirement. They said, listen, this teacher got sick. Send us somebody. And then we had this brand new teacher who was doing well in the trainings. Was doing well, was responding, knew the answers, QL dynamics, L2 output, right? These questions, he aced all the questions and everything. Well, great, let's send him in. Now it's a risk. We don't think he's fully ready, but if he says he can do it, send him in. We sent them in. It was an intermediate class. It was intermediate 7, so the grammar structures are a little more complex. And then we hear a complaint the next day. The complaints came, whole group came down. The poor guy had a mannequin challenge episode. The guy froze. He couldn't answer the questions. He could not answer the questions. And so we have to be, again, everything we do in class we need to prepare for. We have to be really prepared if it's grammar. Now, native speakers, they don't teach us, hey, this is the structure, you got to put the past participle and all this stuff. Most of the grammar is acquired, just like in Spanish, native speakers of Spanish. Nobody teaches you don't acquire grammar by learning and studying a whole big fat book and, learning all the rules. You acquire the language naturally, right? So, but if you're going to teach the language, you better know what you're going to talk about, and you better come up with some relevant, understandable, comprehensible examples. And you better be prepared to answer some questions, because if you don't, especially with the higher levels, they're going to have you for breakfast. They're going to come down as a group. And let me tell you something about idiomas. I don't want to scare you. But idioma students are pretty demanding, very picky. And so if they see something they don't like, they complain about it. And it's usually more than one. They come in groups of 2s and 3s, if it's not the whole class. Now, it doesn't happen all the time. Complaints have gone down a lot, believe me. But you gotta prepare. You have to be ready, especially when it comes to grammar. That's why we're going to talk about grammar today. All right, anybody else? No, that's it. Okay, mannequin challenge is out. So, teacher training, grammar, a couple of fundamental questions that I'd like you to discuss in pairs or groups. what is grammar in the first place? What is grammar? I mean, to teach grammar, we have to know what it is, right? And the role it plays in language learning. So talk to your partners for a couple of minutes, 2 minutes. And again, another lesson that I apply all the time, I'm going to use my stopwatch, make sure that we stick to the time. So I'll give you 2 minutes to discuss it, and let's see what you come up with. All right, if you're finished, you can start looking at the next question. Why should we teach it? Okay. Let's see what you have to say. Charles, there we go. Give us a nice, concise, simple answer.
What we as a group actually kind of discussed, it's basically the structure of English language. I was kind of describing it in a more abstract way. It's kind of like the algorithm that makes up a language. If you look at it like from a math perspective, you can't do an addition problem incorrectly and get a proper answer. Right?
I like that. I like that. Did you get that? Yeah? Everybody hear him? Can you say it a little louder? He doesn't want to miss it in the back.
Yeah.
Say it a little louder. Algorithm. Pay attention.
It's kind of like the algorithm of language, I guess, right?
I like
you
that.
have to do the formula properly to get
Thank
the
you.
right answer. So.
I like that. I like that. Yeah. Yes. Your name, please? Josie? Yeah, Josie. Yeah, go ahead.
It kind of answers both questions, but the way I see grammar, it's like you have a puzzle, so like a jigsaw, and all the pieces are vocabulary. So you can kind of see each individual piece, but you won't understand everything until you put all the pieces together. So then you see the clear picture.
I like that. I like that too. Algorithm, jigsaw puzzle. Luis?
That is called syntax.
Syntax, right. The way they come together, the order of the words in a particular statement. Okay, very good. Excellent. Anybody else? Okay. Something like the algorithm or the jigsaw puzzle? No? Okay. I love it. I love it. Why do we need to teach grammar? James, why don't you tell us? Why do we got to teach grammar? Why don't we just throw it out?
No, because one thing is important that they know the grammar for the structure and the form and the meaning, the way things are used.
Okay. All right. Because otherwise we can't communicate our ideas coherently, right? Yes.
Because every language has a particular way of structuring its own syntax and morphology.
Okay, all right, good, good, good. We need to teach it, but there are two ways to teach it. One in the traditional manner, where we learn it for its own sake. So it's a body of knowledge that we want to kind of take in, or we learn it so we can use it for communication. We need to learn it for the second reason, so we can use it in real life situations so we can get those ideas out and communicate with other people. Okay, that's why we need grammar. Okay, the question is, how do we teach it? That's the next question. Let's listen to Professor Jack Richards. Dr. Jack Richards. Has anyone ever heard that name before? Yeah, he's really famous. He's a world-renowned researcher. He's also the author of the Interchange series, the Passages series, the Four Corners series, some other series, and he also edited one of my publications. So he's a really smart guy. So let's listen to him.
Hello again. I'd like to talk about grammar today. A lot of teachers ask me, should we be teaching grammar? Is grammar still important? And so on. And of course, with some of the current methodologies that are being used today, grammar has a different role, different status. I like to think of grammar as a communicative resource. Teaching grammar as a communicative resource. What do I mean by that? Well, if you look at the grammar books that you probably are familiar with, or the way grammar is taught traditionally, the focus is on understanding how language works and also practicing using grammatical rules and so on at the level of the sentence. And so students study how to use adverbs, how to use the tenses and so on. But what's important, of course, is being able to use that knowledge of language while one is in the process of communicating. And that's what I mean by using grammar as a communicative resource. So, for example, take the case of recounts or narratives. When we're engaged in conversation, a lot of the time what we do is share little stories. This is what I did yesterday, what did you do? This is how I spent my vacation, what did you do? And telling that little story or that recount requires a certain amount of grammar. It requires the past tense, it requires action verbs, it may require adverbs and adjectives describing reactions to situations and so on. So there the student is required to call upon his or her grammar and use it as part of the process of communicating about a particular event or topic. This is what I mean by using grammar as a communicative resource. So when we're teaching grammar, we have to go beyond looking at how grammar is used to shape sentences. We have to ask, how can grammar be linked to real context for the use of the language, to real communication? And that's where the notion of grammar as a communicative resource comes up. What do students want to use language for? And how can we incorporate into those uses the awareness of the grammar that they've learned and the ability to use that grammar appropriately in conversation, in discussion, in presentations, and so on. Grammar as a communicative resource.
Thank you, Jack. All right, so I'd like you to discuss briefly for 60 seconds what does Jack Richards mean by using grammar as a communicative resource. Okay, so that's the question. What does he mean by using grammar as a resource or resource? Okay, well, for 60 seconds. Fernanda, why don't you tell us, what does Jack Richards mean when he refers to grammar as a communicative resource?
Well, what we said was that grammar is now like a tool. It's not like the main thing that students have to learn. Like the main thing is communication, how to speak, they have to understand. So they use grammar as a tool to make this communication work.
Can make the communication work. Okay, I like that. Tools. We need these tools to help us get the message out, make communication effective. Cecilia, do you have something similar? Did your group have something similar?
Yeah, we mentioned first that if there is no grammar, it's not possible to speak or communicate, but then we discuss and the idea is not exactly like this because we can communicate in other ways. And I think that the oral communication is just the 30% of the general communication, but if there is not exactly the structure to create sentences or associate or have a complete idea of something, it's not possible to communication.
Okay, all right. So again, the ultimate point here is the grammar is available to us at any time as a resource. As we develop a second language, it grows and it grows. There's a version of the language that we have in our minds. It's called the interlanguage. Okay, it's in constant development. As we're exposed to more and more input, as we learn more things, as we use the language more and more, the interlanguage expands. Now, part of it will be highly accurate. Okay, it will be complex. We can use it at any time. Some of it will not be so accurate, will be imperfect in nature, and some of it we won't really be able to use for a while yet, okay, because it was just introduced into our interlanguage. So it's a constantly changing thing, and grammar is a part of that, okay? That is constantly expanding and changing and improving. So we need to rely on this to get the idea out, and I guess the main point is that grammar must be taught so that students can use it to get their ideas out in real life situations and communicate successfully. Okay? So for example, we were to look at 3 situations like these, what would the grammar be? Now 2 of these we looked at the last time. So for example here, what are we looking at here? What's the situation being depicted here? Okay. It's a restaurant, okay? And we have a waitress, a couple of customers. Now you can focus on vocabulary, but we're not talking about vocabulary today. So if we were to focus on grammar, what kind of grammar do we need? Like which ones? I would like, right? I'd like a hamburger, please. Okay. Anything else?
Would I get?
We'll have, perhaps. Okay, so I'll have a Coke with that hamburger, and I'd also like an apple pie for dessert. Okay, good. Anything else in the back?
Polite requests.
Such as?
Can I have a glass?
Okay, so we're using can,
May I?
can and could. Could I also, can I get the bill, please? Can I get the check? Yeah? Okay. Good, good, good. So that's the grammar we would need for that kind of situation. It's a little like what Jack Richards was also talking about, right? So we need it for certain situations, going beyond the single sentence level. This is like telling a story. So if we're telling a story, if we're talking about something that happened to you last week or over the weekend, what do we need? What grammar do we need? Past tense. So we need to use the past tense, and if we're going to tell it accurately, we have to be accurate ourselves. And if we're talking about, what are we talking about here? The future. What do we need? Will. So usually we need, again, not only the main verb or the modal or the grammatical structure, we might need complementary grammar such as adverbs and adjectives and verbs and the like. Okay, different parts of speech that have to come together to allow us to perform successfully in a real life situation. Okay, all right, good. So very quickly, if we look at different types of knowledge, we have declarative knowledge and we have procedural knowledge. We have explicit knowledge and implicit knowledge. They're basically the same, very similar concepts. When we work with explicit knowledge, we're trying to get people to know how the language works. Okay, so you know how the language works. It's very much associated with traditional grammar teaching. Okay, so you get to understand how the language works. Whereas implicit teaching is more student-centered. Explicit, teacher-centered, implicit, student-centered. Declarative knowledge is knowing about the language, being able to describe how it works, how to form regular, how do we form regular verbs in the past tense? What do we need to conjugate a verb in the past? We need ed or ied if it's with a y, right? Okay, but that doesn't mean you know how to use it. You can tell me about it. It doesn't mean you know how to use it. All right, so that's your declarative knowledge. But the procedural knowledge or implicit knowledge is what comes out when you need it at any particular point in time in a real life situation. That's the difference, okay? All right, grammaring. Now, this is an important concept. This was first coined by Diane Larson Freeman. Has anyone ever heard that name before? Diane Larson Freeman. It's a very important name. You will learn it soon. Actually, we're about to launch our first 3 readings for you to start reading. We're going to have a formative assessment in the first week of May. But anyway, Diane Larson Freeman is one of those names you have to know. She is, where is she originally from? Is she from Vermont? Anyway, she worked at SIT. She was director of the ELI, the English Language Institute at the University of Michigan. She's a big researcher in the field. She associates chaos theory with English language learning, etc. She wrote a book called The Grammar Book. It's like 1,200 pages long. It's like this big. It's a monster. Yeah. She wrote a book called From Grammar to Grammaring. Okay. So it goes back to the year 2003. That's when she first coined this term, grammaring. And basically what it says, she considers grammar so important, or grammaring, that she considers it a 5th skill. So you have reading and listening, speaking, writing, and grammaring. Okay? Now, grammaring basically means you have to be able to make sure that students understand and are able to use form, meaning, and use. Okay, so this is what the 3 components of grammaring: form, meaning, and use. This is what you have to make sure is present in your grammar lessons at Euridiomas. If you're teaching grammar at Euridiomas and I happen to sit in your class, I better see form, I better see meaning, and I better see use. Okay? Otherwise, we're going to have a nice chat. A nice one, believe me. I'm not saying that sarcastically. A nice one. And we'll talk and say, hey, you know, what happened? You know, the meaning was missing from your lesson. Whatever, something like that. Very nice. Don't worry. No firing or anything. All right? Don't get nervous. Anyway, form is basically, what do you think form is? The actual structure, right? And how do we see form in a traditional class? Subject plus verb plus complement. The formula, yeah? The famous formula everybody uses in a traditional grammar lesson. So students get to see, oh, that's how you assemble it. That's how you put it together. I need to see the components. So the jigsaw puzzle thing, right? Or the algorithm, how it comes together. Okay, I need to see it. I need to see how it works, the logic behind the construction. The meaning is even if you didn't see it in an example, you'd be able to figure out, okay, the meaning in terms of, basically we want to put it very simply, it's how you define it, okay? And we're going to see an example like that. So what does it mean? How do you define it? If you had to give a definition for it, what would it be, all right? So for example, present perfect. If you had to come up with a definition for the present perfect, what would that be? So that's inherent in the actual structure without contextualization. And then the use is basically, okay, that's the grammar. How do I use it? What kinds of situations is it good for? Okay, can I use it for expressing sorrow or giving advice? Can you give me some examples? Basically, the best way to get use across is to give examples that are meaningful and relevant. Okay? All right. So we'll do a little exercise here. I think you have it in your handouts. I've given you two different structures. I didn't tell you what the structures are, but I gave you the form for one and the meaning for the second one. I want you to work together in pairs or groups and complete the charts. Try to figure out which structures we're talking about and try to complete the charts. We want to make sure we see the form, what the meaning is, and how do we get students to understand how we get to use that in real life. How are we going to get to do that? Okay, work together. I'll give you, we got two structures, I'll give you 3 minutes. All right, here we go. Okay, so I think, who was it, Akash or was it Sebastian? Who was first? Sebastian. Any one of the 1, 2, 3, 4 spots. Explain it to us. Anyone, your pick. What did your group work on? And tell us. Just one of the 4. Don't give me all 4, just give me one. The second one. What is the second one? What is it when we talk about things in the past without referring to a specific time? What is that? What's the grammar structure? No. Don't give me the form. What do we call it? You don't seem too sure. You're like, present perfect? Are you sure?
Yes. I was going to give an example.
Okay, good. But first we have to identify the structure. All right. Present perfect. Give us an example. A Peruvianized, or you're from Peru, right? Okay, we got some guys from Venezuela, from the UK, from different places over here. Yeah.
I visited the Mali Museum 3 times.
I'm sorry, I'm losing my hearing. I'm sorry, could you say that again? Even though I'm really young, but yeah.
I visited the Mali Museum 3 times.
I have visited the Money Museum. There's a Money Museum here in Peru? Yeah? I gotta go. See, I didn't know. I gotta go. You see? Thanks to Sebastian, I'm gonna go this weekend and I'm gonna visit the Money Museum. Very nice. Is that correct? Yeah? Is that Peruvianized?
Yes.
Good. Akash, give us another point over here. Anyone? 1, 2, 3. Give us another one. Not all at once. Not all at once now. We'll give you one at a time. One at a time. Don't rush. Okay. Don't worry, Akash. We're friends here. No pressure.
Well, the first one.
Right here. What are you going to give us? The meaning or the use? What are we talking about here, for example? Subject plus to be plus verb, past participle. What is that? What is the structure? Passive voice. Okay, all right. So what are you going to do? You're going to give us the meaning or the use. What are you going to give us? Are you going to give us the use? You slip right by the meaning. A sly fox. All right, go ahead.
The Nobel Prize was given to Mario Vargas.
The Nobel Prize for Literature was given to Mario Vargas Llosa. Okay. Yeah? Does that sound okay? That's okay. Passive voice in the past. Okay. 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 Yeah, I didn't specify. I didn't specify. Does anybody? Yes, Luis? A Peruvianized example. But that's Peruvianized. Is that Peruvianized?
Yes.
Mario Vargas Llosa. Good. What do you mean? Last time oh no, wait, he's from Arequipa. It's not, that's the, yeah, that's not, that, you're wrong. That's not Peruvian, that's Arequipeñanized.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
I got 2.
Yeah.
Which one do you want first?
Oh my, he's giving me a buffet. A linguistic buffet. Go ahead.
Okay, from Arequipa.
Okay.
Rocoto relleno is eaten in Arequipa. Wow.
Rocoto relleno is eaten in Arequipa.
It's
Ceviche is eaten in Lima. Okay,
And
all right.
ceviche is eaten here.
Okay, that's right. And the best ceviche is at Juez y Parte. Hey, that's his restaurant, by the way. He owns a restaurant called Juez y Parte. It's on what's the name? La Mar. It's on La Mar. In case you get hungry after this training session. Okay. Anyway. All right. So that's a commercial, free commercial. We'll talk later. All right. Okay. What about the meaning? How do we describe the meaning for the passive voice? Who wants to give it a shot? Not all at once. Not all at once. I can only call one person. Cecilia. Okay.
Well, I always
And the Isa will go next. Yeah. Go ahead.
I always consider that in the passive voice, it's not exactly who did the action, but it's very important is what was done.
Okay. So the action is not as no, excuse me. Who did the action is not as important as the action itself. Okay. When you're talking about the action more than the person who did it. Isa, were you going to say something? So?
Changes up the focus of the sentence. Instead of focusing on the person, you focus on
You focus on the action. Does that sound right? Good. We have to explain that to students. We have to make sure they understand it. Okay, there has to be a rationale behind the grammatical structure. So we need the meaning. We need the if we don't have we have the form, we have examples. It's going to be tougher if we don't get the meaning across. Does that make sense? Yeah, good job. Anybody want to give another Peruvianized example? Yes, Cesar?
Sorry, this is PBK was invited to quit.
That's a nice way to put. That's a nice way to put it. Yeah. Okay. What about Kenji? Do you have an example with Kenji? No, the Avengers. The Avengers. Yeah. Okay. No, don't worry about the Avengers. Okay. Let's not get political here. Okay. Although, see, somebody. You see, you gotta. I was listening on TV 2 days ago when I first heard this, and then I heard everybody saying Avengers, Avengers. I was like Avengers. I said, wait a minute, that's Avengers. We got to do some practice, pronunciation practice right there. Anyway, when you're teaching grammar, make sure you cover form, meaning, and use. So we're going to be there. We're going to be sitting. We're going to be checking out James's grammar lesson. And James is going to, okay, no, wait till you see what I got in store for you. He's going to show us the form and the meaning and the use somehow. Whether you're working inductively, remember inductively we don't present the grammar right away. We let the students work out the rules first. Okay? So that's your book. How many of you are working with Open Mind? Have you worked with Open Mind yet? Only 2 people, don't worry. John, I think, is working on it right now, so everybody starts working with it as soon as possible. Okay? Those are the instructions. Okay, he's my guy. He's going to get you in those classrooms as soon as possible. Anyway, so Open Mind is a course book that introduces the grammar, for the most part, inductively first. So students are exposed to input. They look at the input. They have to figure out, hey, there's something in here that's interesting. It's repetitive, something that kind of jumps out at you. You notice it as a student. Richard Schmidt's noticing hypothesis. Okay, and they notice it and they say, wait a minute. Okay, this is a verb. I think there's a verb. Here's another verb. Okay, there are like 6, 7, 8 verbs here, and they all have an ed at the end. I wonder what that means. And then it says last week. It says yesterday. I guess. Hey, what do you think? Yeah. I think. Hey, man, listen. I think this is like a verb in the past tense. I think all these verbs are in the past tense. I think. You know what? Why don't we say this? When he calls on us, why don't we tell him to form a verb in the past tense? You got to put an ed at the end. Yeah. Let's give it a shot. And then the teacher calls and says, hey, James. Well, did you notice anything special in that reading? And James will say, yes, teacher. The verbs are in the past tense. To form a verb in the past tense, you have to put an ed at the end. Excellent. Excellent. Great job, James. You're going to get extra credit. Okay? Or you're going to get a cookie at the end of the class. Okay? Whatever. I don't know if you guys give out cookie or candy or whatever. Anyway, so you have the inductive. But even when you do inductive, even if the student is correct, you have to confirm, because remember that process of induction, you know, they're trying to figure out the rules. You must confirm the hypothesis that they've come up with. It's like, you know, you're speculating, you're hypothesizing. You say, does this work this way? Is this what we think it is? So you're going to go explicit anyway. You're going to go and show the form and the meaning and the use eventually, regardless of whether you start off inductively or not. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. So make sure you have students come up with their own examples. So listen, this is very important. It's not enough to work with the examples in the course book. The course, especially with the more modern course books, they don't have that many examples. You know, they give you 2 or 3 and that's it. Very stingy, very cheap. cheapskates with the examples. You have to come up with your own. You have to expand, go beyond that. You have to Peruvianize. If you Peruvianize, if we were in Belarus, we'd be Belarusinizing, then they will connect, because they're like, oh, wait a minute, ceviche, I know what ceviche is. Oh, ceviche is made with onions and garlic and whatever goes in there. Okay, that connects better because I know what ceviche is. Mario Vargas Llosa, Nobel Prize, Nobel Prize was, yeah, that connects with me, okay? I understand it better if you relate it to something they're familiar with, something from their reality, okay? Have students explain the grammar whenever possible. So this is almost like a concept check. It's called meta-language. Remember, we talked about 3 major forms of L2 output in the classroom, especially when it comes to speaking. We normally talk about interactional language, which is when students perform a communicative task. But we also have classroom language, and we have meta-language. When you have a grammar lesson, you want the students to produce meta-language. Will it come magically? Will it come out of the blue? Will somebody be so inspired and engaged by your teaching style that the meta-language will start pouring out of nowhere? No. So what do we have to do? We pray for divine intervention. What do? We got to teach them the expressions first. So we have to show them. Okay? We have to show them how that's done. In other forthcoming or upcoming sessions, I'm going to show you how to start teaching them gradually from basic level to intermediate level, how to teach them how to talk about grammar, how to talk about vocabulary, etc. Okay? All right. So these are the things we need to do in our grammar lessons. Now, I think in your handout you have this. This is from a real class. Okay? This actually happened. It's a real story.
Real story.
Yeah. Okay. So this is from a lesson. The teacher was talking about passive versus active voice, okay, in the present, yeah. So the teacher. Let's suppose that you're in a classroom. You're observing the teacher. You're new, so you've been sent to observe this teacher, and the teacher's presenting a grammar lesson on the passive voice in the present. And the teacher says, okay, listen, the simple present passive is just a different way of expressing the active. Okay, so that's what the teacher says.
That's pretty weak.
Well, I'm going to let you decide that in a few minutes. Second, the teacher says, hey, first of all, this was like right after, this was the year before. This was right after Valentine's Day. So everybody had just come back from Valentine's Day. They went out with their friends, with the girlfriend, the boyfriend, the wife, the husband, whatever. And so the teacher was leading a discussion on what they had done for Valentine's. So everybody was talking, and so Marjorie speaks up. And so it goes from Valentine's Day to what they do in general. And so Marjorie says, hey, yeah, I like to swim. She says, swimming, I like swimming. So the teacher took a note of that. She wrote, Marjorie practices swimming. So she wrote, Marjorie practices swimming. And she did it for a reason. She did it for a purpose. Okay? So later, she's trying to come up with examples, and she says, okay, let me give you an example. My dog eats spaghetti noodles. Okay, everybody, write that down in your books. Everybody's writing that. Now I'm going to show you another way to say that. Another way of saying it is, spaghetti noodles are eaten by my dog. So write that down. Everybody's writing down. Everybody repeat. Spaghetti noodles are eaten by my dog. Spaghetti noodles are eaten by... Everybody's repeating. Okay. Marjorie, remember you told us that you practice swimming. Practice swimming. That you practice swimming? Okay, why don't you change your sentence so it's like the dog sentence with the noodles. So Marjorie comes on up. She comes up. She changes it to, swimming is practiced by Marjorie. Excellent. Excellent. Everybody, excellent. Ah, everybody's like, ah. Okay. And so you see like 7 or 8 other examples like this. Now, as a reference to contextualize, in the book, the examples are a little different. In the book, you have examples like, rubber is produced in Brazil. Cars are manufactured in the United States. Technology is developed in India. They're a little different, okay? So I want you to work very quickly. I want you to discuss this. First of all, do you see form, meaning, and use here?
Yes.
And second, is there anything you would do differently based on what the teacher did? I mean, would you do it the same? Are you okay with this? Would you teach it this way, or would you do it somewhat differently? I'll give you 2 minutes to discuss that, all right? And then we'll get some opinions from everybody. Rochi, do you see form, meaning, and use?
I see meaning
Where?
where it says a simple present passive is well no, actually no. There is no meaning.
Now listen, it could be an attempt. It doesn't have to necessarily be the right way to do it, but it can be an attempt. Do you see it? Do you see meaning?
Yes, I see it, but it's incorrect.
Okay, all right. Do you see a form or use?
I see use like like spaghetti noodles are eaten by my dog, and the other two examples that I don't agree with the way it is presented.
You don't agree?
No.
You don't like dogs?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
But I would
Dogs eat
present it
spaghetti?
in a different way. I would start like, for example, I would look at the examples in the book, of course, previously before the class, and I would start my class like asking them, for example, what is produced in Peru, and I would write the structure on the board, and like, for example, I don't know, what is produced in Peru, like shoes, for example, or shoes are not produced. Let's use wool. Wool is produced in Peru, and then I will start eliciting examples from my students, but using the same structure. And then I will do the same with manufacturing and the same with development.
That sounds pretty good. Now she might be, how many of you agree? She might be completely wrong. How many of you agree? Yeah? Okay, all right. It sounds good. I like it. I like it, okay. Charles, you want to say something?
Maybe I'm being a bit nitpicky here, but I like most of the sentences here. I like examples from the course book. I like the starting sentence with spaghetti noodles are eaten by my dog. But swimming is practiced by Marjorie is something I don't know if I've ever heard the passive voice be used with an activity, right? So you're making an activity passive, which to my native speaker brain sounds really uncomfortable, right? As opposed to making two objects a passive of one another.
Yeah.
So to me, this is false practice.
Is he being too picky?
No, I don't think
No?
so.
No?
I wouldn't say this.
Yeah, right?
Swimming is
Yeah?
practiced by Marjorie.
Nobody would say like that? Swimming is practiced by Marjorie?
No.
Right?
Of course not. Okay, all right. But before we go to the use, meaning, do you agree with Rochi? Does anybody have another interpretation of the meaning? It says so. You want to say something?
Yeah, you're right. Basically, you gotta make it meaningful. I mean, become like things like rubber is produced in Brazil. We kind of know that. There are some things that are obvious, and especially nowadays, like say young people or teenagers are like, "Hey, teacher, what are you talking about?" And
Okay.
I know that. So maybe
Sure.
we'll go further and think of something more creative, like you say, Peruvianized examples. And,
Okay,
and
which is what Rochi was trying to do before. Okay, so listen. Yes, Rochi.
But for example, it says the simple present passive is a different way of expressing the active. That's not correct.
That's not correct. It's an attempt to convey the meaning, but it is incorrect. Okay, so she tried, but she failed. It wasn't done properly. Second, there has to be consistency between remember that we learn grammar to communicate for a purpose, correct? In real life situations. The book is using the passive to talk about things that are made or manufactured or developed, etc., in different countries. So we're talking about products and services and specific verbs that are associated with that. This is not consistent with that. This is a different theme, right? Here we're talking about daily occurrences, pets, whatever. And normally we don't say spaghetti noodles are eaten by my dog. My dog eats spaghetti or whatever. My dog eats spaghetti noodles, period. You just use the active. You don't go to passive. There's no need to. So the problem with this lesson is that the examples were badly chosen and they reflect a way to use a grammar that is not used in real life. If you teach students how to use grammar in a way they'll never use it in real life, it's worthless, it's no good, it's a waste of time. Your students will never be able to use it, and then that's it, it's gone, the time is gone, okay? So if we're going to use examples, they have to reflect how we actually speak and communicate in real life. Otherwise, it's no good. Yes, Charles. Oh, James, sorry, James.
The other James.
Yeah, we have two James here.
And
Yeah.
two Charles.
And two Charles, yeah.
Okay. When you're asking this question, are form, meaning, and use accounted for? So going back to form, I don't see that teacher actually broke
That is
down
correct, I'm sorry.
grammar the way
Right.
I referred.
Exactly. So form is also missing. Okay, form is not present. And form at some time is needed by certain students, especially teenagers and adults. Adults are very sequential, analytical learners, and they need to see how this is constructed. So it depends on who you're working with. And James is correct. It's not present here either. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay? So, good. Now let's look at the grammar lesson. You have the grammar lesson here with Adele. She's singing. She's a great singer. Take a look at it and tell us. I hope she's there. Is she there?
I think she is.
Yeah? She there somewhere? Yeah? Okay, good. Take a look at it very quickly. And when you look at grammar, see, when you're looking at form, meaning, and use, are they present here? Yes or no? Can you see form? Can you see meaning? Can you see use? It's an extended lesson, as you can see, present perfect and the simple past. 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's got 4 components. Take a quick look at it and tell me if form, meaning, and use are present there. All right, on a count of 3. 1, 2, 3. How many of you see form? Hamley, are you stretching or yeah?
Practice. When you choose the correct option to complete the sentences, you are looking for form. I mean, the structure, the formula.
Now, when we look at the definition of form according to Grammaring, where we actually see the construction of the grammar and how it's assembled, do you see that?
No.
No. Okay. So it's not there. Okay. Normally, it's not present. Sometimes it's not present at all, but normally it's not present when you're reviewing a grammatical structure. So you're seeing it again, but maybe you saw present perfect alone by itself, and now you see it comparing or contrasting it with the simple past. So you're kind of seeing it again. So here the authors felt maybe it was not necessary to show the form again. Okay? Do you see the meaning?
Yes.
Okay. And of course you do see the use, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So if you had to introduce the form, where would you put it? Would you put it if you felt a need to address the form, would you put it before A, before B, before C, before D, or after D? Where would you put it? If you had a choice, where would you put form?
Before C.
Okay, Rochi feels it would be most appropriate or best placed before C. Fernanda before D. Also, we have before C and before D. James?
Maybe before D.
Before D.
I liked it with C.
Okay, so you're kind of combining it with C. Cecilia?
Before A.
Before A. Okay. Javier? Before A. We got all kinds of answers today. Charles?
Let's complete the cycle. I'd say before B.
Before B. So we got before A, B, C, D.
After A.
After A, before B.
I said B too.
Semantic difference.
Before B. And Josie? Before B. Okay, good. I'm glad. We got a lot of great ideas. Technically, there is no wrong answer. There is really no wrong answer. It depends on how familiar and comfortable your students are. But if you asked me, where would I put it? I'd probably put it before C. Now, why is that? Because first, you're exposed to the inputs. The grammar is embedded in the inputs. Students are supposed to use it or listen to it, see it, kind of identify it in the input, okay? Analyze it. Then you go to B, where they specifically and explicitly analyze the language in A, and they have to make the association between that language and the target grammatical structure. So you're not going to present explicitly at either one of those stages, because you want them to think first, you want them to process, to analyze, to speculate about the grammar. But before they do C, which obviously focuses a lot on accuracy, you want them to be able to answer these questions accurately, you might want to review the form. So that's why I would say before C, if you asked me. Now technically, there is no right answer. I would probably be more inclined to introducing it before C. Yes, Miriam.
Plus we have here the example, so we can write there and we can ask them to analyze what's the forms.
Okay, good. Yeah. To make it more student-centered.
Yeah.
Let the students construct the form, maybe. Yeah?
Come up with examples on the board.
Good. Very good. Yes, James.
If you're going to use this though, like from C, before we give it out, or give it out as a handout.
Or it could be after C too?
But I'm going to before C, because I said maybe use it with C, because I was going to use the language what we have here.
Right.
If you highlight it on the board, and then we could elicit what we can and highlight.
That's better. I like that. Say it loud. Can you hear him? In the back? Sebastian? Yeah? Say it one more time.
So
I like it.
we could highlight it on the board and then elicit from the students, and then so it would be projected onto the board using technology, and then we're eliciting from the students, then we can underline it.
I like it. There you go. You're making it more student-centered. You're using the tech dynamics. Do we have candy in the back? For our guy over here. Come on now, that's an excellent contribution right there. Good. I like that. So you're combining it there. Yes?
Well, I said after A because I think that if you give first the input and then you give the form, the formula and all that, then the students will do the exercises well, and there won't be chance that they're wrong.
You might be completely right too. But it depends on your group. It depends on the circumstances, okay? I can see the rationale behind what you're telling me, okay? Good. Now, before we watch some videos, yes, James?
This book looks like it came from, this page I should say, looks like it came from Open Mind. It is.
It is from Open Mind, book 2.
And even though it doesn't say it, could you explain if Open Mind was a direct creation based on these principles of Freeman, or did it just so happen to coincide with what Freeman was saying?
Larson Freeman?
And you liked the way that it was?
No, it's actually based on
It's purposely a creation based on the Freeman.
It's actually no. Actually, a lot of books will have they will address form, meaning, and use. Here, the emphasis is more on the notion of noticing. Now, there's a whole thing behind noticing. Richard Schmidt came up with a hypothesis called noticing in 1993. If you notice, actually, the section is called noticing. And so it's based on that, in that first, the teacher provides students with input where the target structure or the target language is embedded. There are two types of input with noticing. It's structured input and enriched input. Structured input has the target language highlighted somehow. So it might be an underlined word, it might be a different color, it might be circles, whatever. So it makes it easier for students to notice the language they're supposed to see in the input. Or it might be enriched, which means you don't have it highlighted, but you have a lot of examples, so it's kind of hard not to notice it, yeah? And so it's more focused on noticing, and then they follow the normal procedure of introducing form. You have to show the structure, and then you have to kind of have a reference to what it's used for, the meaning, and you have to give examples. So by default, it kind of falls in line with the framework, Diane Larson Freeman's framework. But they put a little more emphasis on this notion of noticing. So you'll always see an inductive approach at the beginning of a grammar lesson. You'll be exposed to input, whether it's a reading or a conversation, and then they'll work from it, work with it from there. Okay? Good question. All right. So very quickly before we go to the video, I'd like to ask you, have you ever heard of a technique called look up and say? Okay. Recently I've gotten very few yeses.
Yes.
Okay. What do we use that for? Normally you use it with a conversational practice, okay? Now conversational practice is very controlled. In other words, they tell you the lines that you're supposed to repeat, okay? So you assume one of the roles. In the conversation, in the dialogue, there are 2 or 3 people who are participating, 3 characters, fictional characters, who are carrying out this communication or conversation in some sort of a setting. The target language is embedded in the conversation, so you're supposed to notice it as you're using it. But the way it's conducted is you have the students assume the roles, right? Whether it's A, B, or maybe A, B, C, right? If it's 3 people, and we're supposed to say our lines, okay? And we're supposed to repeat that several times, once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, whatever, okay? Does anybody know why we have students do that? I mean, you're all familiar with what we do, right? You didn't know it was called look up and say, but you do know that, I mean, you do that all the time. You have students practice dialogues and they have to repeat the lines and then switch roles and that kind of thing. Everybody's done that at some point. Why do we do that?
So that they start memorizing the structure
Repetition.
or the phrases.
Get familiar with new terms.
Yeah, you get familiar with the new terms. It is a form, it is a memorization of sorts. In other words, it's called deliberate practice. Deliberate practice, it kind of has students say something on a repetitive basis very intensely in a very short period of time, many, many times, in the hope that you'll get some of that jammed into short-term memory, and by doing it over and over again, it goes into intake. So you do actually, it's kind of a memorization. It's like a mini memorization process that eventually no longer is memorization. You intake, you incorporate it into your interlanguage. Some of it, at least, maybe not all of it, but some of it, okay? So that's why we do it, okay? I just wanted to explain that because most people don't know we do that, okay? Now, let's see if we have time. We do have time. Look at the conversation in your handout. We got, who's that, Lola? Lola and Richard, okay? You need a dialogue. It's called Lola and Richard. Lola. Everybody has Lola? Hopefully. Lola? Actually, I see it on my presentation. I hope you have Lola. No Lola?
It's right under the.
Yeah, actually it's right here. It's on this page. You have it? Okay. Look, it says Lola. Okay. All right. So listen, this is what we're going to do. Normally you have listen, repeat. You want the students to repeat. You want to correct any pronunciation errors. You want to make sure they pronounce the words correctly. Okay? And then you do the different things. You play, everybody says A and then B and whatever. You do what you do. Yeah? So we're going to jump right to the communicative practice. I want you to get into pairs very quickly. And we're going to follow a 6-minute cycle. So that means that you're going to practice with a partner. Okay? You're going to switch roles. You're going to do the roles. So for example, James and I'll be Lolo.
Lolo Fernandez.
I'm Lolo. Lolo Fernandez. That's right. I'll be Lolo. And James is Richard. Okay? I'll just be Leo and James. Okay? Leo and James. And so we play our roles. And we practice. And then we switch. We switch. And you're going to keep on practicing. You're going to repeat it. You don't stop. You keep on repeating until I say stop. Okay? And then I tell you to switch partners. And you switch partners. And you continue. At one point, I'm going to say, get ready. You're going to close your books. And then you're going to, when I say close your books, you flip this over and you just keep on talking freestyle. Whatever you can remember. It doesn't have to be 100% correct. Okay? And then I'm going to tell you personalize. So for example, in this conversation, you're talking about, well, I think I learned it Tanzania, but it's Tanzania. Tanzania. And then you've got Australia. And then you got Africa. Well, you change it. You change it to Piura. You change it to Brazil. Change it to Florida. I don't know. You change it to whatever. Okay? Miami Beach. Pina coladas. Right? Okay. Huesi Parte restaurant over there. Okay. You got a happy hour, right? There we go. Happy hour at Huesi Parte. Okay, anyway. All right. And then we'll do a role play. do a couple of people up here, come up here and do a role play. All right, very good. Everybody have a partner? Begin. Oh, wait. Sorry. Sorry, I have to be more specific. Listen. This is not going to work. Hey, how you doing there? What is it? Let me borrow this. Yeah. It's not going to work. I'm tired of winter. I need a vacation. Me too, but I don't know where to go. What about Tanzania? No, that's not going to work. Listen, it's called look up and say for a reason. So you got to look at it. I'm tired of winter. I need a vacation. Now you got to put emotion into it. Now this is not The Walking Dead. Okay? We got to put emotion into this. We got to make it realistic. Okay? And you have to look in the eyes. If I see somebody reading, you're going to do a dance routine up here. You're going to be singing like Adele. Okay, so let's see some action. Let's go. All right. Find a new partner. Turn around. Move around. Switch partners. Switch partners. Well, come up front and do the first role play. Come on up, guys. Let's go. Everybody else sit down.
I'm so tired of the rain. Do you have any plans for vacation?
Well, since you don't like Seattle, I recommend the desert here in Peru.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I've never been. What is it like?
Well, we still have beautiful beaches, but we don't have the rain that you don't like.
Oh, that's awesome. My sister actually has been to the Atacama Desert in Chile. Is it like that?
I don't know this desert in Chile, so I can't answer it. But I want to know, is your sister beautiful?
Yes.
Is she married?
No.
Oh, even better.
Yeah.
All right, bravo. Did we hear any examples of what structure are we practicing here?
Have you ever been perfect?
Any present perfect there?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was present perfect. There was present perfect. So even though there were two instances of present perfect, so even though, you know, it was freestyle and everything, if we hear it's present somehow, that's good. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, but they're making an attempt. Present perfect. It's gotta be right. Right, very good. Isa, and who's your partner? Charles. Let's go. Isa and Charles. 1, 2, 3, action.
Oh, this Lima heat is killing me. I need a vacation.
Me too. Do you know where to go? I don't know what to do. Do you have any ideas?
Have you thought about going to Cusco? The weather there is a little cooler, and it rains every once in a while. Have you ever been there?
No, but I've seen pictures of Machu Picchu and stuff like that. It seems really cool.
Good. Yes, I would like to go there as well. Maybe one day I could meet a llama. That would be great.
I really like to, yeah, I guess. That was my I would really like to meet an alpaca too. This is my mom used to live around, so she met llamas. She said they're amazing.
I know many people that have met llamas, and they say they're the best animals to be born that exist.
Don't they spit them or they're alpacas?
I have never been spit on by a llama.
All right, bravo, bravo. And one, this side of the room. Luis, who did you partner with?
Oh, well, my partner was James.
Did you have another one after that?
Yeah, I don't know what happened here, but I have a new partner.
Well, come on up, let's go, let's go. On a count of 3, 1, 2, 3, go.
Hey, my friend, how are you?
Thanks.
You know, I'm tired of living in Lima. It's so boring now. I've been here for so long.
Where do you want to go?
I want to go to a place where there's a lot of sunshine.
Well, maybe you should go to Miami.
Miami Beach. Wow. Have you ever been there?
No, I haven't.
Why not?
Too far away from
Far
Lima.
away. Wow. Yeah. But I have a cousin who has been there over there, and she says it's amazing.
Really?
Yeah, there are a lot of beautiful girls.
Great.
Maybe we should go together. Yes.
Great idea.
All right, let's go.
All right, bravo. Okay, very good. All righty. So listen, hopefully they will incorporate some of the target language. They don't have to. It's an introduction. Remember that it's embedded as a first exposure to the target language. You're going to see it later presented in the grammar lesson. The important thing is that students first, they practice it. They do the deliberate practice, right? They repeat, and then they have fun. Because it's not just repetition, it's also having fun. All right, so you let them personalize the language. The whole concept of personalization also applies here. Okay? So everybody now knows look up and say. Look up and say. It's also called read something. Read, look up, whatever. You got the idea. Okay? And you have to look in the person's eyes. And you've got to put what into it? Emotion. You gotta live it. You gotta be alive. Okay. So this is the Peruvianization stuff that we talked about. There's something called collaborative input where the students give you examples. Now in a traditional grammar lesson, I write my examples, you copy my examples. We had somebody called Loquito Grammar many years ago. He was a great guy. I love the guy. He's retired now. But he used to write like a zillion examples, super long grammatical examples on the board. It was like the guy was into example, and everybody had to copy. The students had to copy, right? So the students had to copy all the examples. But today, well, we have technology now, so you go click, and then the examples pop up, right? And you also want students to come up with their own examples and work with you to co-construct the lesson. It's not just you. You should work with your students and let your students help you put examples on the board. So you're working together collaboratively. That helps you get them to think about how the grammar works and how to use it for examples of language they're going to use in real life. Okay? So it makes it more student-centered. So apart from the meta language, you want to get students to collaboratively provide you with input, examples of their own, that would, of course, by default, will be Peruvianized, right? And then you write them on the board, and that will facilitate comprehension. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. All right, so we're getting to the end. I think we don't have time for the video. Okay, maybe we'll watch 5 minutes of it. Okay, so you're like, yeah, put the video. Yeah, okay. Okay. Here we go. All right, so let's see. Now, in this video, you might see somebody who looks familiar. Actually, my younger brother is in this video. So listen, this is an old series, but the concepts are the same. So I mean, if we look at the handout, does everybody have the handout here? Let me see. This handout right here, it says grammar focus. Take a quick look at this grammar exercise, okay? Take a quick look at it. It's important for us to see how the lesson is structured. Do you have one?
No, I do.
Yeah. How the lesson is structured, what the components are, what the purpose of each component is. Take a quick look at it. And then look at the next page and see which of these elements are present in the grammar lesson. So for example, do you see yes/no questions with did? Do you see WH questions with did? Yes/no questions with was and were? WH questions with was and were? Short answers with did and didn't? And statements using regular and irregular verbs. Work together with your partner very quickly. Go over that grammar lesson. What do you see? If you see it, check it off. Check it in the box. Check the box. And if not, just leave it empty. Okay, do that for now. All right, here we go. Yes/no questions with did. Yes or no? Yes. WH questions with did. Yes. Yes/no questions with was or were. No. WH questions was or were. No. Short answers with did, didn't. Yes. Statements using regular and irregular verbs. Yes. Very good. Now, look, jump to part D. I'd like you to identify the purpose for section A or part A and the purpose for part B. One of them provides controlled practice. Is that A or B? Check the box. One of them enables students to personalize the structures. Is that A or B? Again, take a look. One of them contextualizes the grammar in the form of a dialogue. And finally, one of them encourages students to experiment and to be creative with the new grammar. So check off the box that applies. Is it part A or is it part B? All right, here we go. Which one provides controlled practice? Part A, good. Which one enables students to personalize the structures? B. Which one contextualizes the grammar in the form of a dialogue? A. Which one encourages students to experiment and be creative with the new grammar? B. Very good. Let's look at the next page, page 34. The teaching steps. Put the teaching steps in the correct order. Try to guess what the correct order is. So they're not in the right order, they're mixed up. Students complete the task, present example sentences using the audio program, model the task, elicit or explain the rules, check answers with the class. Put them in the right order. The first one is 1, the second one is 2, and so on. Try to put them in the right order, and then we will confirm the correct sequence in a second. Which one do you guys think is first? Elicit or explain. Over here? Present example sentences? You weren't sure? How many of you have present example sentences first? How many of you have elicit or explain the rules? No, as 1. Okay, either one of those. All right, let's see. Let's confirm. And while you're watching, pay close attention to what each teacher does, please. Okay?
Formally present the new structure that was introduced in conversation. First, there is a summary of the new structure. After the summary, there's controlled practice. Finally, there's some freer practice of the grammar. In the freer activities, students have the chance to personalize the grammar using their own information. There are 5 general teaching steps for grammar focus. Step 1, elicit or explain the rules. Step 2, present example sentences using the audio program. Step 3, model the task. Step 4, students complete the task. Step 5, check answers with the class. In this segment, we'll observe as Elisa Shore teaches a grammar focus from Unit 7. We'll also watch Leonardo Mercado teach a grammar focus from Unit 8. Now let's go to the classroom where Elisa Shore will demonstrate the teaching steps for a grammar focus from Unit 7.
Okay, we're working on past tense, simple past tense verbs. Let's take a look in the student book at page 41. And I'm looking at the purple box at the top of page 41. We see regular verbs and irregular verbs. Here are 2 examples of those verbs. Regular verbs are ED verbs. Try this word with me. I'll say it, you repeat. Invite. Invite. What's the simple past tense?
Teaching step 1, elicit or explain the rules.
What spelling do I use to make this past tense? ED. Okay, so I'm going to add a D, invited. Okay. This is an irregular verb. It's a different verb. Irregular. Try it. Irregular. 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 Okay. Drive. Drive. What's the simple past tense? Drove. 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 Take your teeth and lightly press it to your bottom lip. V. Drive. Drive. Drove. Drove. How do you spell drove? D-R-O-V-E. Okay, so the irregular verbs change spelling. I don't simply add ed, I change the spelling. Let's look at the purple box and listen to the tape.
Teaching step 2, present example sentences using the audio program.
Page 41, Exercise 3, Grammar Focus, Past Tense.
Did you stay home on Sunday?
Yes, I did. I watched a football game on TV.
No, I didn't. I invited friends out to dinner.
Okay, let's listen again, and this time I'll go slowly and we'll repeat. The goal for these students is to communicate. Oral communication is at the top of their list in terms of how they'll need to use English. That's why I focus so much on pronunciation. The students might have a correct grammatical sentence or a correct structure, but if they cannot make themselves understood to others, there's no point in having perfect grammar.
Did you stay home on Sunday?
Try it.
Did you stay home on Sunday?
Remember to make the linking or connection between did and you. Did you stay home?
Did you stay home?
Did you stay home on Sunday?
Did you stay home on Sunday?
Take a look at A, the next exercise.
Teaching step 3. Model the task.
Complete these conversations, then practice with a partner. I'll do number 1 with you. So number 1, we have a question. What's the question in 1A? Did you go out on Friday night? So write the words did and go on 1A. Right now, do it. Did you go? Okay. B, what's the answer? No, I didn't. No, I didn't. So we're practicing didn't. No, I didn't. Next, I invited. I invited friends over and I what? I cooked. I'm not hearing the final consonant. I cooked. Good. And I cooked dinner for them. Okay. Again, did you go out on Friday night? Repeat.
Did you go out on Friday night?
No, I didn't.
No, I didn't.
I invited friends over and I cooked dinner for them. Okay. Please do 2, 3, and 4 together with your partner. You should take about 4 or 5 minutes to complete this. So together with your partner.
Went to the new town. Right.
It's similar to
Complain.
Teaching step 4. Students complete the task.
The neighbors complained about the noise.
While the students work in pairs, the teacher monitors them and provides feedback.
I loved it.
Good past tense ending. I loved it. Let's connect the consonant to the I, to the vowel. I loved it. I loved it.
I loved it. Hello.
Write special problem points on the board.
Okay, look at the board. Here's a new word, and it's pronounced unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately. Unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
What does unfortunately mean?
It's bad.
It's bad. Too bad. When something negative or bad happens. Let's hear you now using these conversations. Let's hear Jana and Sang. Would you read number 1, real loud and clear?
Teaching step 5. Check answers with the class.
Did you go out on Friday night?
No, I didn't. I invited friends over and I cooked dinner for them.
Very nice. Let's have Tashu and Selhang read number 2.
How did you spend your last birthday?
I had a party. Everyone enjoyed it, but the neighbors complained about the noise.
About the noise. Noise. Good. Wenmei, why don't you read the next one, number 3, with Nadia? Good. Now look at B. B says pair work. Take turns asking the questions in part A. Give your own information when answering. Let me demonstrate that to you. Boris, you'll be my partner. I'm going to talk to you about number 1, but let's use our own personal information. So I'll say, hi, Boris.
Hi.
You say, hi, Elisa.
Hey, Lisa.
Boris, did you go out on Friday night?
No, I did not.
I didn't.
I did not. I invited friends over.
Now, Boris, I want you to tell me, what did you really do Friday night?
I read a book.
Oh, what's the past tense of read?
I read a book.
Good. So let's try it again. This time you say, I read a book, if
I
that's
read
what
a
you
book.
did. Boris, did you go out on Friday night?
No, I was at home.
So no, look at B. No, I didn't.
No, I did not. I invited friends. Friends.
I thought you said you read a book.
I
Ah.
read a book.
Oh, you read a book. Okay. What else did you do on Friday night? What did you do after you read your book?
I go to bed.
Oh, what's the past tense of go?
I went to bed.
Ah. And what about you?
The students move from controlled exercises to freer exercises.
No, I didn't. I watched TV.
Do you remember the 5 teaching steps for grammar focus? Teaching step 1. Elicit or explain the rules. Teaching step 2. Present example sentences using the audio program. Teaching step 3. Model the task. Teaching step 4. Students complete the task. Teaching step 5. Check answers with the class. Now let's watch as Leonardo Mercado makes the transition from conversation to grammar focus and demonstrates teaching step 1. Grammar focus usually follows conversation. The same examples are often used for both exercises. Conversation presents the meaning and the use, while grammar focus presents the form or the rules.
Okay, everybody, good, good. Return to your places. Very good. Okay, good. Jack asked questions about the locations or the places. Where are the places?
Show a clear link between the conversation and the grammar focus.
He asked about the laundromat and the grocery store. What were his questions? So Jack asks 2 questions. Is there a laundromat near here? Are there any grocery stores around here? Okay. How do we answer when we say yes? Is there a laundromat near here? Yes? There is. Okay, yes, there is. And if there is no laundromat, what do we say?
No, there isn't.
No, there isn't. Okay, no, there isn't. Okay, let me erase this. Good. Okay. Now, are there any grocery stores around here? What do we say if it's affirmative? The answer is yes. Are there any grocery stores around here? Are there any movie theaters in San Isidro? What do we say? Yes, there are. Okay, yes, there are. If the answer is no, there are no movie theaters in Miraflores. No, there aren't. Okay, no, there aren't. Okay, look at the box. Look at the box. And there's a word there, one. One. Is there a laundromat near here? Yes, there is. There's one across from the shopping center. One across from the shopping center. Okay. What is one here? What does one represent? What does it represent? What is it? Okay, one here is the laundromat. So is there a laundromat near here? Yes. Yes, there is. There is a laundromat, or there is one, right? One near here, okay, on Pine Street. Okay, one is singular or plural? Singular. Okay, so one replaces a singular noun. Okay, a singular noun.
Remember, when teaching grammar focus, show a clear link between the conversation and the grammar focus, and write special problem points on the board.
Okay, very quickly to finish. We have to make sure that the students can come up with examples, okay, in the end. We didn't really see that here, but before we conclude, we have to make sure everybody understands. Give me an example, Alberto, with present perfect. He gives me an example. It's okay. James, give me an example. Start calling on different people to give you Peruvianized examples. If half of your students, say for example, you're teaching the past tense, and half of your students give you examples in the present simple, what do? Better luck next time? Is that what we say? No. What? We have to explain and continue the lesson and review it again. We don't say, oh, that's okay, we'll cover it next time. You know why? Because you're never going to cover it again. You're not going to do it again. You're going to keep on moving forward. So you can't just brush the problem under the rug. You have to address the problem there and then. So you have to make sure that everybody comes up with examples. Otherwise, you'll never really know if they really understood the lesson. Okay? And what you saw about addressing problem points, that's a form of corrective feedback that we're going to see later on when we have a session on corrective feedback. Okay? Any final questions? Very good. I'm glad you met my younger brother with a lot more hair. So anyway, I'll see you next time. Thank you for coming today. Have a great weekend. All right.